Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for WordBridge Now's Teach Enrichment. We are teachers, educators, and authors collaborating against hatred. And we will start with some announcements, and then we will welcome our guest this evening, Christina Veiga from News Literacy Project. All right, if you would, please feel free to say hello in the chat. And if you would like, you can add your pronouns. I am she, her. And I want to give a big shout out to WordBridge's partner, Lee and Low Books. They are the country's largest multicultural literature publisher. They are also independent and family owned, so wonderful company to work with. Right. If you would like a certificate for professional development, please do go ahead and put that in the chat. And this time it actually goes to Christina Bringman. If you would like to put it in privately, otherwise you are welcome to just request that in the chat. Okay. Please do share your cameras if you are comfortable doing so. And know that some snippets of today's program will be highlighted on our Book Bridges podcast, which is available on any podcast platform. So if you do ask a question at the end, then you might be out in the public on our podcast. Please do not take any screenshots of the speaker's presentation materials. They are their intellectual property. However, I will say tonight, I am guessing that everything that will be shared is publicly available because the News Literacy Project is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And we definitely want to acknowledge WordBridge is coming to you here in Ohio from the land of the Shawnee, the Wyandot, the Kaskaskia, the Miyamia peoples. And with every group, we want to honor and build bridges and do all we can to promote justice in our world. And please do invite a friend, join us at WordBridge. We would love to expand our reach for these wonderful presenters and authors that we have. Let's take a moment just to take a breath. Days are busy. News is hectic. Thank you. Coming up next month, we have the honor of Neal Shusterman, who is a prolific National Book Award winning author, and his latest book, Break to You, just came out last week with authors Deborah Young and Michelle Nolden about teens in a juvenile justice system. So many interesting dystopian and sadly apocalyptic. Dry is especially timely right now. So please feel free to join us in August for Neal Shusterman. Okay. Coming up in September, we will have more news. We have an intersectionality panel of authors that will be joining us. October, we get to speak with Alessandra Narvaez Varela, 30 Talks Weird Love, and Paula Yu, her recent book just out, Rising from the Ashes, Los Angeles, 1992, Edward J. Song Lee, Latasha Harlins, Rodney King, and A City on Fire. Paula Yu is another wonderful author long listed for the National Book Award. So eager for her to join us again in November. And tonight, welcome to Christina Veiga. You will notice that we have a QR code here. If you would like to scan that, Christina has given us a very handy list of links that you will find very helpful. So let me tell you a little bit about Christina. According to The News Literacy Project's website, which is newslit.org. News literacy is the ability to determine the credibility of news and other information and to recognize the standards of fact-based journalism to know what to trust, share, and act on. The News Literacy Project, a nonpartisan education nonprofit founded in 2008, is building a national movement to create systemic change in American education to ensure that all students are skilled in news literacy before they graduate high school, giving them the knowledge and ability to participate in a civic society as well-informed critical thinkers. Such crucial work, and thank you, Christina, for this. So tonight, as you can see, we have with us the Senior Director of Media Relations for NLP, and Christina drives press coverage and builds awareness of the organization's work, mission, and impact. She coordinates media requests for information and interviews and plays a key role in promoting National News Literacy Week and other NLP events. Before joining NLP, Christina was a journalist for more than a decade. She started her career at the Miami Herald newspaper in Florida, where she covered several local government beats in the Miami-Dade County Public School System. She went on to Chalkbeat, a nonprofit digital news organization, where she wrote about school segregation, which is highly prevalent today, unfortunately, and early childhood education in New York City. Christina earned a bachelor's degree in journalism at Florida International University. So please join me in welcoming Christina Veiga.
Hello, thank you for that introduction and thanks for the invite. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little presentation for us to go through, and there'll be lots of time for questions. So here we go. Can everybody see okay?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. So I thought it might be fun to just jump right into it with a little pop quiz. We're going to look at some images that one is real and one is AI generated, and I want you to see if you can spot the difference. Oops. Okay, here we go. You can just, think in your head, you can put it in the chat, you can say it out loud, whatever you'd like, A or B. It's really hard, right? And this one's interesting because AI generated images, at least for a while, had a really hard time making hands, but here you've got a whole bunch of fists up in the air and it's really hard to tell the difference. Got one more, crowd, two different crowd photos. Crowds are another difficult one because, you're typically seeing it from far away, things can look blurry. So see if you can spot which one might be AI generated.
I'd say A.
A, okay, anybody else?
Well, maybe B. B looks like it.
The more you
and
look,
it's so hard. This is so hard. I'll go with B this time. Let's try B.
You should have gone with your gut.
It took a while, but then I thought those buildings looked strange just in the way they were situated. So I had to look twice. But it's so hard to tell, and it's so easy to jump in and just make an assumption.
It is. I have one more for you.
Yeah.
You can can try one more time. I'm going to give a hint here to look at the background details and see if there's anything that looks unusual in the backgrounds. You've got really cinematic, dramatic looking footage of, silhouettes here. The lighting is really intense. I'm going to go 3, 2.
I was going to say A.
I'd say B.
Okay. Here we go. In this case.
Oh my gosh.
Right, I got one.
A. Oh my gosh.
So this is really hard. which brings me to talking about the importance of news literacy and what we do here at NLP. And actually, I would say that we encourage folks not to do this sort of thing, to just try to look at, especially these images, to try to determine whether they're real, because it is becoming impossible. And what you really need to do is have skills to be able to search for credible information and verify what you see online. I want to note that I stole most of these slides from my colleagues, and so I am borrowing from their brilliance. I, as you mentioned, handle media relations, but we have a whole team of people whose job it is to create resources specifically for educators and other folks who their job is just to collaborate with educators, provide training, that sort of thing. So I'm compiling all of their awesome stuff and presenting it to you here. As mentioned earlier, there's a resource document, there's a QR code. I will put it up again towards the end to make sure that you have access to all the resources that we're about to talk about. So let me back up and tell you a little bit about NLP. As Angela mentioned earlier, our mission and our vision is really to ensure that all students have the skills that they need to be able to find credible information by the time they graduate high school. We would like to see states and districts pass requirements that make this a necessary part of the education that our students are getting today, because we are living in the most complex information environment we've ever known. And information is the basis of our civic life. So what is news literacy? News literacy is the ability to sort fact from fiction. It's applying critical thinking to make decisions about what to trust. We also talk a lot about the importance of journalism and the role that it plays in a democracy. We spend a lot of time helping students understand what journalism is, because a lot of them don't know what is news versus all of the other content that's coming to them, you know, through their feeds on social media. And we believe that news literacy applies across subjects and grades, and an integrated, sustained approach is really the way to make sure that students are learning these skills. We like to say that it teaches you how to think, not what to think. Sometimes people want us to give them a list of media outlets that they can go to and trust. That's not really helpful. What's helpful is having the skills to be able to make that decision for yourself, to be able to decide whether a source is credible, whether you should share the information you've gotten from it, and to inform your decisions. I know this group is particularly interested in social justice issues and that sort of thing, and it's our stance that young people have the right to news literacy today, because you need to have access to information, accurate information, to make all sorts of decisions that are important to your life. You know, who to vote for, should I get vaccinated, what to believe on any range of issues. We want people to be basing their decisions on fact. We need to have that starting point so that we can all, argue from there about, the best course of action. But we believe that we need to start from a place of facts. So I thought I'd jump into some more examples to give you a feel for how we teach news literacy and what it actually is. So here we have a post that you might come across on social media. It looks like an old-fashioned news story. There's a headline. There's a very, authoritative looking check mark there that it's been fact-checked. And it's kind of an alarming headline that Microsoft is going to disable users who share non-mainstream content. So if you were curious about this and wanted to see what the story said, I should note, this is obviously not true. And let me tell you how you can walk through figuring that out. So if you click on the story, it's going to bring you to a website that, again, looks like a news website that you might come across online. The People's Voice, again, there's a headline, there's a byline, an author, the date, there are comments on it. These all could point to what looks like a credible news site. when I was in school, I learned to navigate to the About page and to read what a source had to say about themselves. And in this case, you would get, again, something that seems pretty legit. It's actually reassuring that they say that they correct their errors. To us, that's a sign of credibility, that you care so much about getting it right that you fess up when you're wrong. They claim that they're delivering original reporting. This looks like a news site. So here's where news literacy skills would come into play. Actually, one of the best ways to find out about a source is not to see what they say about themselves, but to do something called lateral reading, which is to leave the site and go to a new website, new sources, to see what they have to say about the information that you're reading. This is something, the term lateral reading was developed by folks who were at Stanford. Now they're at the Digital Inquiry Group. And it's something that research shows that fact checkers do a lot. So if we do a little lateral reading and make our way over to Wikipedia, we will see that this is a literal fake news site that has popped up under lots of different names. But, if you took 3 seconds to Google the People's Voice and find their Wikipedia page, you would know right away whether you should trust that alarming headline, which turns out is false. So here's another example of some common misinformation tactics. We've got what looks like images of trucks heading to the border amidst a lot of political, chaos around immigration right now in our country. We've got another post that looks like it's from TikTok. Again, folks claiming that truckers are heading to the border to protest. And these are both examples of false context. So false context happens when you take footage that is real, but you take it out of its original context and say that it represents something else. So the first example is from a COVID restriction protest, and the other one wasn't even in the US. And again, this is a common misinformation tactic, and it's easy to do. It's easier maybe even than creating an AI image. You just slap a headline that isn't true on some old content and see what happens. This is another example of a common theme. It looks like Amy Klobuchar is standing among signs that say defund the police, very politically explosive, right? Well, this is a completely doctored photo. So this is a different tactic, is just fabricating something. Here we see the original post. I'm not even sure Amy Klobuchar is there, but you'll see that there are no signs in this post. So these are all examples that you could find on the first resource of ours that I'll mention, which is RumorGuard. RumorGuard is a website that collects fact checks of viral rumors that are circulating online. And we explain how you, the reader, can go through and fact check for yourself whether a claim might be true. And we do that using 5 factors of authenticity: source, evidence, context, reasoning, authenticity. Those are all, as you can see here, questions that you can pose to yourself when you come across a claim that sets off your spidey senses. You can ask yourself these questions and practice these news literacy skills to try to figure out whether it's true. And again, just like, the same reason why we don't provide people with lists of media organizations, we, instead of trying to do, one-off fact checks, we're never going to fact check our way out of mis and disinformation. So here we're trying to teach people the skills that they can apply more broadly to any information that they come across online. So this is an example of what a RumorGuard post looks like. If you click on the headline, you'll notice we're very careful to label things as false. We don't want people to reshare things and that become its own false context. So we're very thoughtful about that sort of thing. And if you were to scroll down on the post, you would see this example with links to, the fact checks that we reference and a clear explanation about why this isn't true. So I keep talking about themes and tactics, and a lot of the thinking around rumor guard, again, is based on this idea of pre-bunking, which research shows can help people learn to identify mis and disinformation. And basically what pre-bunking is teaching people to recognize themes and tactics of mis and disinformation. So right now we are in an incredibly volatile political situation and a high-profile presidential campaign. And so these are some of the themes that we are tracking on Rumor Guard. And so what we would want people to know is that, if you come across a claim about voter fraud, be aware that that's something that mis and disinformers are pushing right now. And so maybe just take one extra step to do some lateral reading to find out if it's true. And when you know the tactics as well, if you get a voice call from Joe Biden telling you not to go to the polls, you should think twice and know that that is a tactic that mis and disinformers are using, and that actually happened in the New Hampshire primaries. Which brings me to AI, which makes all of this all the more complicated, and makes news literacy skills all the more important right now. So, as you saw, it's easy to sort of copy paste something into false context, or even use simple computer programs to doctor images. Well, now we can just type in a description into AI tools and come up with something that looks really real. And your eyes want to tell you, and your brain wants to tell you that you're watching a woman walk down the street at night. But this is all just created out of thin air, out of AI. So the way we approach the news literacy approach to AI emphasizes a few things. One is that these chatbots are not objective. They are trained on basically the whole of the internet. And so that might include credible news sources, and it might include hate-filled message boards. It might include foreign government propaganda sites. It might include stuff that's just plain wrong. And so it is taking up all of this information that has its own biases and is using that to spit out information back at you. And so that's one thing to be aware of. The other is that these things are often wrong. One way in that they're wrong is when they scoop up information that's wrong and spit it back out at you. Another way that they're wrong is what the tech industry calls hallucinations, which is basically just making stuff up. The people who make these tools don't even really know why it happens, but it happens a lot. There were some high-profile cases not too long ago of lawyers who have filed legal briefs using AI, and unbeknownst to them, the AI had just created false legal citations. There have also been cases of AI creating supposed news stories that don't exist. So we know that people are using AI, and we want people to approach it as they would any other source, by making sure that the information that they're getting is credible, and by verifying it, especially because of these issues with bias and accuracy. So that's sort of the news literacy approach to the world. I gave you a crash course, and before I jump into talking about our resources, I just wanted to see if there are any questions. There was a fine answer.
This actually, Christina, I'm jumping in. Kanetta, you said you were gonna manage the questions, and I'm jumping in here. In thinking about that we don't have news literacy standards, is that something that NLP is trying to influence or lobbying for at all?
So I will get into this in our resources, but we have created a framework for news literacy and grade band expectations that educators can use as the basis of creating a news literacy curriculum. We also have a program, this is not mentioned in the resources, but I'll tell you about it. We have a program called the News Literacy Fellowship, where we give districts $20,000 over 2 years to create and implement a plan to teach their students news literacy. And yes, we want to see more districts, more states implementing their own news literacy and media literacy requirements. And we've seen a lot of progress on that front. New Jersey just last year passed an information literacy law, which is pretty broad, and we hope will include news literacy standards. California as well, Delaware. So more and more states are getting on board, and we're thrilled.
Super, super. Yes, thank you.
One of the things that I noticed on social media, especially, I guess, a few years back, I haven't really been on too much lately, but I see a lot of like rabbit hole content where maybe someone will like a meme that's like a really innocent, just nothing meme. And then suddenly the page is showing them, or the algorithm is showing them like more, I guess, conspiracy theory type things just based on one little click. That's one thing that I noticed. And the other thing I noticed is that, you know, there's a lot of content out there that's like, I guess it's supposed to be like inspirational or positive, and then someone will like it or share it or whatever, and then you notice in the corner, maybe like this is a very specific one where a friend of mine, her mom's a special education teacher, and she's on Facebook, and she reposted this thing that was supposed to be like this woman saved a child from the hands like of a pedophile, and no news media has actually congratulated her or whatnot. And she was like, I can't believe they're not talking about this. And then I noticed a little Q in the corner. It was like very easy to miss, but I just feel like I'm curious about how does this differ between generations, I think, because I think that that's one of the things that I think kids are more likely to kind of catch sometimes when things are a little off or weird in some ways, just because they've grown up with it. But I think it's different between generations. Have you seen that?
There's a lot to unpack there, so
Sorry.
No. So your observations, I think are really important. So I didn't really talk a lot about mis and disinformation, in terms of like why people share it and that sort of thing. But one of the goals of mis and disinformation is to trigger a strong emotion in you, to override your rational thought processes so that you will quickly react to it and share. And so that can be a sense of wonder about, oh, look at this incredible nature photo, or a sense of outrage. I can't believe they're not recognizing this amazing person. And sometimes it seems innocent enough, right? Like there are a lot of, there's a lot of conspiracy theory content around The Simpsons, and that The Simpsons is able to predict things that are going on in the world. And you know, you might interact with that, and it seems innocent enough, but it can lead you, as you said, into these more dangerous places, whether by algorithms, which is something that we discuss at the newsletter, that we teach students about at the News Literacy Project. We have a lesson on algorithms specifically so that students understand how and why content is being fed to them. But also because sometimes mis and disinformers can, you know, use that sort of gateway click and then build an audience, and then, you know, sell a site that then, you know, who knows what becomes of it. Maybe it becomes a hub for other kinds of more sinister mis and disinformation. So your observations are spot on. And then in terms of generational differences, it's funny, this comes up a lot. People want to know, like, are young people better at spotting this, or is it just a problem with us old folks? And the truth is that we all struggle with it. I haven't really seen any good research that shows, either way, that it's a problem, especially among older or younger people. Different studies have shown different things. But I think it's more likely that it's hard for all of us. And I think we do a disservice when we assume that young people, because they're digital natives, know how to make sense of all of this, because it's as new for them as it is for us with all this AI stuff, especially. But it's one thing to know how to post a TikTok, and it's another thing to know how to verify whether that TikTok was posted by a journalist who's following ethical standards, and has an editor who's fact checking before they post, versus an influencer who got paid for a review versus an ad. And that's actually a really basic foundational news literacy lesson, and a skill that we find that students and adults struggle with, just identifying what content is this news versus an ad versus something else.
Thank you.
Yep.
I definitely, especially the native ad type thing where you click on something, you think you're reading a journalistic story and it turns out to be an advertisement. That's something that I forgot all about.
Yeah. And this stuff is tricky on purpose, right? And much of the internet is designed to be fast, to be frictionless. You see something, you click, you scroll, you react, you move on. And news literacy, a really simple but powerful news literacy tip is just to slow down, especially before you share something, and just take an extra beat to ask, do I know the source of this? Is it a credible source? Can I trust it? So I'm going to dive into some of our resources, which I would love for you all to know about. They are all free. We do some like paid specialized training with districts and that sort of thing, but the vast majority of what we do is completely free. So our most comprehensive resource is called Checkology, and it's a virtual classroom full of lessons about everything from misinformation to, as I mentioned, algorithms, to how to verify science claims, editorial cartooning. There's a subject matter expert who leads each lesson, and students answer questions along the way. There are real life examples pulled from across the internet, and it's, again, completely free. Our resource library is what it sounds like. It's where we put everything that we have, and we have a lot, quizzes, infographics, that sort of thing. There are tabs at the top of the resource library that you can use to narrow down by grade or subject. So that's a way to make it all a little more manageable. Our most widely used resource is called The Sift, and it's a weekly newsletter that includes a ready-to-implement classroom activity ripped straight from the headlines that week. So we do the hard work of rounding up the latest about misinformation, news literacy, journalism, social media, and give it to you in this one little newsletter. And we also have a program called Newsroom to Classroom, which is a database of hundreds of reporters who teachers can reach out to visit their classroom, either virtually or in person. And the thinking behind this is that, again, most students don't understand what makes news different from all of the other information that they come across. And so our belief is that when students understand what goes into producing, the newspaper, the nightly news, all of the ethical standards that are followed, the fact checking, the editing, that they'll be more likely to trust it, because we know that trust in traditional news media is unfortunately at all-time lows. And so this sort of humanizes what journalism is and helps students understand why they should trust it versus everything else they find online. And did I mention these are free? So this is an example of the SIFT, what an issue of the SIFT might look like. And can you guys see like the whole, you don't see your, okay. So as I mentioned, they come with classroom ready resources. So this is an example of one such resource. It's called Dig Deeper, their feature. Here's our framework and our grade band expectations. So the frameworks lay out standards that we believe news literate student, it's the knowledge, skills, dispositions that a student needs to learn in order to be news literate, and we map it out across grade bands so you can apply this to your own teaching. And I mentioned Checkology. So here there are little thumbprints of all of our lessons. You can see we have a lot. We mentioned branded content earlier. There's a lesson here on it, misinformation. My favorite is just the practicing quality journalism. It's kind of built like a game where the student is a journalist and they are walked through reporting out a story, car crash. And by doing so, they learn what goes into making quality, credible journalism. We have so much stuff. I want to highlight this Misinfo 101 course. We've packaged a bunch of our greatest stuff having to do with misinformation, which is one of the most popular themes that teachers want to teach about. We've packaged together our Checkology lessons on misinformation and conspiratorial thinking, along with some additional, we call them like missions or challenges, which again are like sort of gamified. So in the, can you search like a pro mission, students, I believe they're like an intern at the CIA, if I'm remembering correctly, and they have to go through investigating something by searching online. And so they're walked through basically how to do a better web search, so that they're not just clicking on the first thing that comes up. And Claire Wordle and Renee DiResta are like leading thinkers and researchers in the areas of mis and disinformation. And Cindy Otis was herself with the CIA, if I'm not mistaken. So the lessons are led by really top-notch experts in their field. This is an example of one of the infographics that you'll find in our information library, our resource library, sorry. And we have this one in Spanish too, which is awesome. The practicing quality journalism Checkology lesson is also available in Spanish. We don't have a ton of stuff in Spanish, but there is some. So if you're looking for more, you can reach out and ask, and happy to point you to anything else we might have. So I have more time for questions if we have time. And again, that's the QR code to the resource document, which should have links to everything that we talked about today.
Wow. Wow. It's very, very exciting, and honestly, just such a relief, because as you know, this is why you have whole staffs of people to tackle these problems. It's so frustrating thinking just how time consuming it is to try to just get to some semblance of truth. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we started in 2008, and we've just been sort of positioned at the right time, the right place for a lot of our existence. Our founder saw that basically his own daughter and her peers were just didn't really understand what journalism was, what the news was, and fast forward to today, where conspiracy theories, that sort of thing, have gone mainstream. Another example of how we were in the right place, right time was Checkology, a completely virtual platform you know, well before the pandemic, was available to educators. And then, you know, when everybody was stuck at home, it just, was a perfect resource, all prepackaged for people for educators to use. So, yeah, we want folks to use this stuff. We want students to learn these skills. It's critical to becoming fully informed participants in our civic life, but applicable across all kinds of subjects and grades. So we hope you'll use them, spread the word, and advocate for this in your own schools.
Absolutely. So you
So-
mentioned the grants. Is that fine to put that word out? Or-
So the application process just closed actually
got
for
it.
the latest one, but keep your eye out because it's incredibly popular and I suspect we will be growing it. Hopefully we'll be growing it. So, you know, don't be discouraged. Keep checking back. You know, we've grown like crazy just in the 2 years that I've been here because there is such a need for these resources. So I think I think this is the third cohort of fellows that we've accepted, but if you just Google News Literacy Project District Fellowship, you should be able to find information and get ready maybe for the next round of applications.
This is really interesting, if I may. I regret that I was bumped out. My internet went down and I had to scramble and to get back on. I studied, my tag degree is a BSJ, Bachelor of Science in Journalism. And it was pounded into us, who, how, what, where, when, why, which. That's it. And you don't make up things, you don't editorialize, you don't make comments, you just give the story as it is. You find out as much information as you can and you put the information out there. And I am so disappointed in my colleagues who make commentaries on everything and editorials on everything. And I just want the facts. Just give me the facts. And my whole programming is that way. And I'm so grateful to you to bring this forward and to make this an awareness. I think I would say create this awareness for everybody to realize that not everything you read on the internet is accurate or everything you see is accurate. And you have to be cautious and discreet and evaluate and think to yourself, is this a logical thing? And as you proved to us, Christina, it was hard to tell the difference. It's difficult, especially with pictures. And then when you read articles and you think, oh my God, is that really happening? And I've been seduced a couple of times until I realized, oh my God, I'm not even on the website I thought I was supposed to be on. So I immediately unsubscribed because when I realized it wasn't, just things like that you have to be so aware. Oh my goodness. I want to comment that this has been very interesting, even the short time I could listen, because it's quite a seductive thing, this internet. It's so seductive, and young people get seduced every day and believe what they see and believe that they think everything is the truth. And it just is disappointing because many times those young people do not have the background in the discretionary process to be able to determine whether or not something is true. They just take it as it is. And because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined, it takes everything in and processes it, assuming it's all true. And therefore they are misled and misinformed and miscommunicating all the time. So I just appreciate you and your efforts and your group. I want to sign up for all these things and I want to stay on top of it. I think this is a worthwhile opportunity to support you. Thank you.
Yes, please do. We appreciate it. And yeah, you know, students are struggling with this because they're not being taught. And so we really want to see this become a standard part of what students learn in school. I remember, you know, being hauled into the library and logging on to a computer and being taught how to access, online encyclopedias and that sort of thing. But the way that we access information now is so different. It's just all coming to us sort of in the same way on a feed, through, text messages, that sort of thing. It's oftentimes intentionally misleading, but often and overwhelming. But so something that we really emphasize too, though, is becoming skeptical, not cynical. We want people to know that you can know what's real and what's fake. You don't have to fact check everything, but especially before you share, especially before you make, important decisions for yourself, your family, your community. It's important to make sure you're acting from a place of facts. But especially with AI, it becomes easier and easier, I think, to dismiss things that are uncomfortable or that you don't like as maybe being fake or false. And we really want to avoid that, that cynicism. Skepticism is good, healthy. Cynicism is more dangerous.
Thank you.
Christina Bringman, Canetto. Any comments before I've got my little list here, but I want to make sure I don't take up all the time.
Sure. I just really liked what you said about how fast paced the internet is, and there's no real friction to stop you. You have to do that internally, right? You have to learn how to do that and then actually do it. And I think that for the future, what I'm thinking is, I know that it's not always feasible, but it'd be so awesome if something like the, Checkology or whatnot could be, a link, like a browser link where it's like not telling you where to go or what to, but kind of guiding you to what to do. Or possibly even like, I know I think it's on Twitter. Well, it's X now, but whatever. They implemented something where you're going to share it. And it's like, did you read this first? Like, are you sure you want to share this before reading? Which was great. That added some friction, but it would be so cool if we could have something like that. So that when you are curious about it, it can kind of like, that's where AI can work in our advantage, right? Where it could just kind of scan and say, oh, I'm not really seeing this anywhere. Or I know we can already reverse image search and things like that, but it'd just be really cool to see how we could use the technology to kind of pump the brakes on the technology.
I love that idea. Our position is that this is a huge problem and it's going to take a multifaceted approach to address it. And we definitely think, tech companies and maybe even government regulation might play a role. But really what it comes down to is all of us and learning and unlearning maybe habits, especially when it relates to how we interact with information online. One of my colleagues just did an interview and he mentioned Dan Yvonne. He's our writer for Rumor Guard, and before Rumor Guard, he was a fact checker at Snopes. And he had a really powerful point that so there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation. Disinformation is intentionally false and created maliciously. Misinformation gets spread regardless of intent, but a lot of it is, well-meaning people forwarding things along. And actually, true disinformation makes up just a tiny portion of the misinformation that we see circulating. And so it really needs all of us to spread it and amplify it. Or conversely, it really needs all of us to dampen it. And it seems so simple, but again, just pausing, taking a beat to ask yourself some questions about the source and whether you should trust it really do go a long way. And it would be great if tech companies and others could also come along and help find solutions to these. But we really want folks to take personal responsibility to not only, you know, learn how to identify mis and disinformation, but to also push back against it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really, we don't seem to be agreeing on anything anymore, but I would like to think that we could get like national standards. I'm really encouraged that there are some states that are making these laws that yes, this is crucial, and I know not every state, of course, uses the Common Core standards, but Common Core says things like students have to read the founding documents of the US. And okay, that's fine. Nothing particularly wrong with that, but something that is much more crucial to our democracy, such as misinformation, disinformation, it's not even on our radar. Namely the National Association for Media Literacy Education, they have a set of standards too, and other countries in Australia and Canada and UK, I mean, it's part of their national curriculum, their standards, and not that I think we need a specific national curriculum, but it's incredibly frustrating that we get very focused on some things that are not particularly as significant in my view.
Our education system is different, and state by state, district by district, sometimes city by city, and it does make it harder to implement systemic change, but it's a challenge that we're taking up. And communities should do this in a way that works for them and their schools. And we have those standards and the framework to sort of guide what we think a news literacy, a strong, effective news literacy curriculum looks like. And we hope that communities across the US can get there, hopefully using all of our free resources to make it work for them and their students.
Right, absolutely. I was kind of, I was absolutely kicking myself when I realized I needed to explore Czechology more, and I'm like, oh, it's down for the month of July because which is totally fine, and I will come back to it, but it seems like it's its own mini like Google Classroom, that it truly is set up. If you could kind of explain just the format of it a little bit, or the possibilities.
Yeah. So just so you know, the reason why it's down in July is because we do maintenance where we wipe all of the student data. We take student privacy and student data very seriously. And so if people have questions or concerns about that, they can reach out to us, but that's why it's down now. It will be back soon. So I could probably show you. Oh no, I can't. I think the previews actually are still available. So hold on, you can't see my screen right now, can you?
No, not right now.
Okay, let me see if I can navigate to. So essentially they're video lessons that are led by a subject matter expert to walk students through, it's like it'll be a short video, and then questions will pop up on the screen related to what the students just saw. And then, they'll continue on with whatever the subject is. And all of the, there's quizzes baked in there. Educators can build courses or select from preset courses that we've made depending on the grade and subject that you're teaching. Let me see if I can share my screen and you can actually see it.
And that's what I thought was really interesting, is that, you know, it was obviously the resources themselves are amazing and more than enough, but this was just the whole platform that is already set up. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see this lesson is an hour long. So, and students can access it individually, or a lot of educators end up doing the one-to-many where they walk through it with the students. So this lesson is hosted by a former medical school dean, and it talks about how to identify mis and disinformation when it as it relates to health. It also addresses issues like why some marginalized communities might be more susceptible or vulnerable to conspiracy theories and mis and disinformation when it comes to their health. And so let's see if you can. Oh no, we can't do the preview even. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. Oh no, that's okay.
But they're engaging. They have examples, you know, pulled from TikTok and Instagram posts and that sort of thing. One of the lessons or one of the interactive questions that students answer, I think in the Be Health Informed that I was just trying to show is, you know, their Instagram posts of like influencers pushing certain products, and you have to identify what kind of content it is, that sort of thing. But if you have more questions about Checkology in the resource document that I shared earlier, there's contact information for my colleague Brittany and my colleague Erin. Brittany handles our partnerships with school districts and you know, that sort of thing on the East Coast. And Erin deals more with state partnerships with school districts, but they're both Checkology pros and can tell you everything you need to know about it.
That's great. That's great. Well, anyone with a like 10-second question before we wrap up here tonight? Well, just tremendous thanks for your time, Christina, and to you and your colleagues. Truly a gift, and gives me hope that yes, there are ways. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And in the spirit of words as bridges, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Christina. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't hesitate to be in touch if you need anything.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.
Bye.